Diolch am y croeso a diolch am y gwahoddiad a croeso I chi gyd i'r cynulliad. Thank you very much for the welcome and for the invitation to come and speak to you, and a welcome to you all to the National Assembly for Wales. It's good to see you all, and it's good to be among old friends as well. Although it may not be the best of circumstances, at least we are all still together, which is a good thing, I'd say. Unfortunately, I'm not able to stay until the end of the meeting with you this afternoon. I'd like to, but I've got to get back up to the Rhondda to do some door knocking up there, I'm afraid. But before I go, I would be keen, and I had a quick discussion just now before starting the meeting, to hear from you what you think we can do here in the Assembly to support the fight that you have got on your hands to try and ensure that there is a decent level of probation service to the people that you provide that service to. Now this week I've written a letter, just for you to know, to the First Minister, and I've got copies of it here. I've only brought 20 copies with me, but I'm happy to leave those with you, and there are a series of questions in that letter about the impact of the changes to the service on the people who are affected in communities here in Wales. I previously outlined as well on many occasions the reasons why I think the devolution of the probation service to Wales is a good idea, mainly because the worst excesses of the privatisation agenda could potentially have been avoided. And the reason I say that is because politically the centre of political gravity here is more progressive, I would argue, than it is in other parts of the United Kingdom. And I'm sure that if other colleagues from other parties were here today, they would agree with that. Even the Conservatives here in Wales are to the left of the Conservatives in London. Now, I'm sure I don't need to spell out to you the reasons why privatisation doesn't make sense. And to the majority of people out there in the rest of the country, they too understand why privatisation doesn't make sense. Poll after poll shows us that people understand why privatisation doesn't make sense. As we've seen in the health service, it's the Conservatives' friends who are likely to benefit most from winning the contracts, and often from other examples we've seen of the privatisation of public services, quality can be reduced as well as quantity of those public services. Unfortunately, we've just seen the publication of the Silk Commission here in Wales. Part 2 has just reported. It talks about the police, but for the rest of the criminal justice system, it pretty much says that it'll take 10 years before we're able to see the rest of the criminal justice system devolved to Wales. For me, that's no good, because probation is being privatised now. Swansea Prison is the most overcrowded of all the prisons in the United Kingdom now. The fact that we've got no facilities for the incarceration of women offenders in Wales is a problem here in Wales now. And the fact that Wrexham has been identified as the site for a new Titan prison is a problem in Wales now, today. Even the outdated drug laws, which see the legal highs causing more problems than the illegal highs, the outdated drug laws are causing problems for people in our communities now, today. So these, for me, are the reasons why we need to have control over the criminal justice system as it pertains to Wales here in Cardiff Bay. In 10 years' time, it'll be too late. Now, I know from my years of working within the probation service that the people who are generally attracted to work in the service are people who are prepared to do the tough work at the coalface, the people who are prepared to get their hands dirty to try and create a better society for us all to live in. People who think like that, unfortunately, people like us, have been sliding back politically over the last number of years, decades we could say. The neoliberal politics, which started with Margaret Thatcher, was continued with Tony Blair, and his steamroller in ahead with David Cameron could carry on for some serious time if we could even see UKIP members being part of the next government. So the politics emanating out of London has become ugly, very ugly in my view, in many, many ways. The focus on immigration, on benefit scroungers, I think those kinds of issues symbolise a general rot in that politics, and the tabloid attacks on the poor, on Muslims, they all highlight the same thing. And of course we saw the result in the European elections just gone. UKIP do very well when that kind of politics forms the background noise. So I think that's just some evidence of a general slide in politics in a general direction that I don't particularly like. And it's easy, and it sounds a bit like I'm standing here now inviting you into my pit of despair because things are so awful, and in many ways they are grim, but I think it is worth looking north, because there is, for me anyway, a glimmer of hope over the border in Scotland. Now, the probation service, albeit it's not called the probation service in Scotland, is not being privatised there. People all over the country in Scotland are engaged in a fierce debate sometimes about the future direction of their country, where they want the country to go, and they've got a government that has made sure that all of those people have had a proper say in a vote in September. Now, personally, I'm very excited about the possibilities that could potentially open up for us in the rest of other parts of Britain if events in Scotland proceed, regardless really of whether there's a yes or a no vote, because things are not going to be the same after September the 18th, whatever the outcome of the vote. Now, if I lived in Scotland, I'm in absolutely no doubt at all I would vote yes. And if there is a yes vote, I think there's a great opportunity for us here in Wales to take advantage, because there is a potential for that centre of political gravity to move away from it just being all concentrated in London, for Edinburgh to take a share too. And that neoliberal consensus that's been building up for over the last 30 years has a chance of finally being broken. Now, if they do that, I think that potentially opens things up here in Wales as well. It's got the potential to create the conditions for us to push well beyond the boundaries of the Silk Commission, and to get to the point where we can decide for ourselves what powers we should have here in Wales. And I've called that process self-government. Now, I said at the beginning I'd like us to spend a little bit of time focusing on action and outcomes, and what we here as Assembly members collectively can do to support your cause. I've mentioned the letter that I've written to the First Minister, and I should let you know as well that Labour Assembly member Julie Morgan raised questions to the First Minister last week in a statement on the Silk Commission. So there are opportunities for us to raise your issues here in the Assembly, even though probation isn't yet devolved. We are approaching the end of term though, so maybe now is not exactly the best time, but I'm pretty certain that your concerns and issues are still going to be around in September when we return, so we can still carry on and pick up with that when we return from recess. I'm grateful to you all for having me here to speak with you this afternoon, and for listening and for your interest. And I know that being on the front line of your profession, you're under attack, you're under serious attack in a way in which sometimes you must all feel pretty hopeless to you all. And I just hope that I've been able to convey something to you this afternoon, that a political alternative at least is possible. It doesn't necessarily have to be completely hopeless, but I don't think that hope can be found in the politics in London. So on those dark days when it seems that all is completely at odds, all the odds are stacked against you, just think that you do do very good work with your clients. That work is very much appreciated, that you do have friends in the political world here in Wales, and at least here in Wales there is a little bit of light at the end of that dark, dark tunnel. Diolch yn fawr.